a little bit backwards, but we're also looking forwards, because we're looking at the connection between the UIA and the wider cohesion policy. How do we add value? How do we scale? How do we mainstream? So these are some of the key words we'll be using in our session this morning. We have a fantastic lineup, which I'll share with you shortly. We also have more than 1,500 registrations. We expect about 500-600 people to be joining us today from across Europe. So welcome once again. It's great to have you with us. We are in deep midwinter. It's -8 in Brussels at the moment. You are joining us from your kitchens, your spare bedrooms across Europe, because we are still in deep lockdown, so we cannot connect face to face, sadly. But we're trying to make this session as interactive as we can. And let's just look at the etiquette. Let's look at our rules for the game for this morning's session. If you're joining us for the first time, this is probably really helpful if you've been with us before, and most of us are familiar now with how this works, but let's just go through the key points anyway. We ask you to keep yourselves muted at all times, because if we've 500-600 microphones on, it's going to get pretty messy. You're already jumping to the chat box, so great to see all those good mornings from Cork, Rome, Vienna, Split, Cartagena. So really, really nice to see that. The chat box is a space to share content, to raise questions, to make comments. If you have links you want to cut and paste, that's where they go. So that's a lively space. We will be recording and capturing the content there. In fact, we'll be recording all the content from these sessions. So you'll be able to share them later on and also revisit them if you'd like to do that. If you missed last week's session, we have 4 articles which have gone online this morning from the 4 discussions in the breakouts. So one of the disadvantages, many disadvantages to not meeting face to face, but some pluses, one of which is we can record things and we can have these conversations without actually having to travel across Europe. So there are some benefits to the planet as well. Let's maybe have a quick look at the plan for today. Here's today's agenda. I'll just give you a big picture overview. So we've got some scene setting shortly, just to frame this morning's webinar. And then this session is really divided into 2 parts. The first part, we'll have a panel session focusing on this key question of the integrated approach, examining the policy objective closer to citizens. Last week, we looked at 4 of the 5 new policy objectives in our breakout sessions. This morning, we're looking at the 5th, this whole issue about how we make a better connection with citizens across Europe. My friend and colleague Peter Ramsden is going to be moderating that session with a great lineup of UIA cities, and Peter will be introducing them shortly. We're then going to hear from Marie-José Zondag and Joanna Smetek from ECORIS, who've been doing some really interesting work around how we monitor and evaluate and get a better understanding of the impact of innovation. And again, that's a little trailer for an event that's happening in a few weeks' time, when you'll be able to hear more about that interesting work. So we've got MJ and Joanna joining us after the panel session. We'll then take a short break. After the break, our focus shifts a little bit. We're looking at this whole question of scaling, mainstreaming, the bridge between UIA and managing authorities, national agencies, national ministries. So how we can scale up some of these key lessons that we are seeing coming through from the UIA projects. Marek Teplansky from the Commission, from DG Regio, will be moderating that session. And again, some really great perspectives, not only from managing authorities, also from the national agency in Italy, and Zdenka Simonovic joining us from Ljubljana from a city perspective. So a good stakeholder mix in that session. Amelie and I will then do just a little bit of a wrap up at the end. Remind us what's happening next. We have our third and final webinar next week, and then we will close at 12:30 at the latest, possibly a little bit earlier. Let's see how things go in terms of the Q&A session at the end. So that's our plan. I'm going to ask Amelie to join us, switch her camera on, and maybe we can have a little engagement with the audience. Amelie, good to see you. How are you today?
Yeah, good morning, Eddie. I'm good, thanks. Good morning, everybody. I'm really happy to be joining you all today. It's good to be back online for the second webinar. I'm going to be the co-moderator, mainly watching at the chat for your comments and questions and dealing with the polls as well. So right now, we are going to start with finding out who's in the room. So get involved with the poll, which is in the right side of the screen. We are asking you now the first questions. Vasily, can we have the poll now? Thank you very much. Great. So we'd like to know what kind of organization you represent. So managing authority or intermediate body for EU funds, a national ministry or agency, city authority, regional government, university research body, NGO, private sector, or you can represent as well an EU institution or other. And if you are representing another organization, please use the chat bar to specify it. So get involved, put your answer. Click on one of those. You have 1 minute to do it. 10 seconds remaining, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, I encourage you to answer to this poll because we really would like to know who is with us today and who.
And here are the results.
His perspective. Great, thank you for the results. So we have, biggest response group is city authorities, people from cities. So this is what we can expect for such webinar. But we also have good participation of managing authority. So we'll get an interesting perspective from them. Especially on for this webinar, will be very interesting. So yeah, we will have different voices. That's great. Feel free to share your different perspective on what we are going to talk during this webinar in the chat. I hand over to you, Eddie.
Thanks a lot, Amelie. Nice to see you, and good to see such a diverse list of places popping up in the chat bar. So interestingly, mainly cities, some managing authorities, lots of people from the private sector, from the NGO sector also. So a nice mix. So that's great to see. Keep the conversations going in the chat. So we look forward to engaging with you this morning. We'll be running another poll later on after the break. But for the moment, let's just frame today's discussions a little bit by inviting François Gallaga to join us. François works at DG Regio. François is le responsable for the initiative, very close to UIA. And it's really great to have you with us, François, because I think earlier this week we published an assessment study looking at the big picture and what we've learned from UIA so far. And maybe we can start by asking you maybe just to help us understand this mainstreaming term. Mainstreaming is a word which we think we all know we understand, but it means different things to different people. So hello, welcome, and maybe help us first of all just understand what this term means in the context we're talking about today.
Yes, good morning, Eddie. I hope you hear me loud and clear. And good morning, of course, to everyone as well. I'm very pleased and well to see that many people connected together with us today. And I would like, of course, on behalf of DG Regio, to welcome you to this second of the series of our Urban Development Networks webinars about UIA. As Eddie put it, actually, I'm working as policy officer in the unit dealing with inclusive growth, urban and territorial development, where I'm indeed the first contact point of the Region of France and of the UIA Secretariat on all what relates to the initiative. And this is in this frame that I've been supervising this the first external evaluation of the instrument, which a final study has been recently published. My colleagues will give you the link in the chat, and the consultant will be giving you a sort of complete overview of the findings and recommendations for the future in the next session of our webinars. And I will try to bring you through some of the pointers for our discussion of today. And indeed, yes, Eddie, perhaps you're right that we might have to try to explain a bit what mainstreaming is about in our context for today's discussion. Well, for us, it is a bit a way to recall one of the core instruments, core ambitions of the UIA, which is beyond the funding of pilots in few cities through a relatively modest budget envelope of 372 million over 2014-20, well, to incentivize cities to be innovative and later on to spread their ideas and prove tested innovations, well, with an ultimate goal in mind, which is to better use cohesion policy funds which are dedicated to sustainable urban development. That is to be via the 5% of ERDF national envelopes which are dedicated to urban areas, the so-called Article 7 strategies in our jargon, and even I would say beyond. Just to recall that over the period, it is a bit more than 115 billion euros that are planned to be spent in urban areas. So if I put it short, in a way, the Urban Innovative Actions is the urban policy lab of a bigger factory, which is cohesion policy, and needs to be fed by ideas to be processed and possibly deployed later on at bigger scale if deemed to be valid for such a purpose. So in a way, this brings us to different ways to a level of intensities, I would say, to experiment this mainstreaming effect. From a quite soft mode, so to say, first by disseminating the results of the UIA projects themselves as an inspiration for our programs, strategies and projects, to more, perhaps the ambition is also to have a bit of a more tangible aspect and options, which would be to use the funding from these programs, well, to support good quality projects that were not funded because of the scarcity of resources within the UIA, to provide for extra funding to sustain or scale up UIA projects in their own cities of origin, and beyond that, well, to adapt and try to replicate these UIA solutions outside of their testing zone to other cities, regions, and cities. So, if you wish, it would be by ticking these 4 boxes that we would have completely exhausted the full mainstream potential of UIA.
That's great. Thanks, François. And I mean, tell us a bit about what does the assessment study tell us about the potential for UIA to have this impact on at the higher level, this notion of scaling you talked about. So maybe can you just share with us some of the content around that?
Yes, well, very quickly here, as you can see in this slide, first I would like to say that the study highlights a rather positive perception from managing authorities. We got a quite significant and representative turnout of managing authorities from most of the member states, especially those managing authorities dealing with so-called sustainable urban development strategies. And 75% of our respondents, well, consider that the UIA topics are consistent with the priorities of their program. And I could have also mentioned other type of replies, well, showing their openness to learn about the UIA and possibly use some of their findings as a way also to use the funding available into their program. Another important point to recall is that by design, the UIA projects were called to express their contribution to ERDF thematic objectives that allowed our consultant to map out their thematic coverage, as you can see from the right upper corner here in the slide, as a good illustration of what the UIA project have been about, and as a reference for programs targeting perhaps these thematic objectives. So, of course, a very important focus on innovation, ICTs, green transition, social inclusion. And interestingly, it corresponds to a number of thematic objectives, which are very often the most programmed in sustainable urban development strategies. And here, to be even more concrete, the study also highlights that 69% of our UIA projects will actually take place in cities where ERDF sustainable urban development strategies are also implemented. And for 86% of those cases, these strategies are thematically compatible to provide some extra funding to sustain or scale up activities from the UIA projects. So this would be where obviously the conditions would be the most favorable for mainstreaming innovation, and of course where it would be the most evident. But perhaps I could also add a few words. Next slide, please. Just to recall that, well, we are also of course, aware that there could be a number of timing considerations that could prevent UIA projects to realize their full potential within the programming period 14-20. So this is why it's also important to recall, you did it already partly, Eddie, that, well, the UIA projects, which are in the making for most of them for the moment, will still be fully relevant to inspire the cohesion policy of 2021-27 in terms of the thematic knowledge that they are generating, of relevance for our 5 policy objectives. Indeed, we had very good illustrations of this during the panel sessions of the UDN webinar of last week, but also in terms of methods that these projects are implemented and that are very consistent with the approaches that are expected under the policy objective 5 for Europe closer to citizens.
And I mean, we'll be talking a little bit later in the second panel with some managing authorities, with national agencies, you know, who'll be getting into more of the detail of the opportunities, the barriers. I mean, what are some of the barriers? I mean, I know the study looked at this issue of what's getting in the way of us doing this more effectively now. I think the next slide is going to cover this issue of barriers.
Yes, well, here you can see in this slide, to discuss about the issue of these barriers when expressed in terms of replicating the most successful UIA projects, so perhaps the most challenging ways to achieve our mainstreaming effect. And here you see the results of the online surveys which were carried out that gives us answers from the perspectives of both managing authorities and cities. What is quite encouraging is here to see that there is a consensus between both groups reflected here, that the obstacles are more related to the practicalities than to the values of replicating. Actually, when you see the very low levels, for instance, of replies, which would raise some issues related to an interest from cities to enter into such types of cooperations. Unsurprisingly as well, the lack of funding comes as a first in the list of obstacles, although perhaps a bit less prominently for managing authorities population. And obviously as well, there is a lot of complexity when we speak about replication. This will probably come up in our discussion today. Mm-hmm. And some of the obstacles on which we will have a little leverage, to be frank. For instance, I'm thinking about the differences in terms of institutional, legal, or financial setups, but still there are also a number of parameters on which we can have, together with the programs on the European Urban Initiative for the Future, where we could make a certain difference. I think, for instance, in terms of funding, in terms of capacity building, in terms of transfer mechanisms, to quote only a few of them.
Okay. I mean, interesting, the funding of those two sets of respondents, cities and managing authorities, this funding issue is top of both, and sometimes these are very blunt. They're, you know, we need to probe a little bit more deeply to see exactly what we mean, because there are funds around. Is it the flexibility of the funds? Is it the kind of the regulator? Is it a regulatory issue? So again, we might explore some of these later on in the sessions coming up, as you say, Francois. And then you've given us a little hint of what's happening next. Should we just jump to the next slide, where you can maybe just tell us a bit more about some of the plans and what's down the line in terms of how we move forward on this?
Yes, sure. Well, the assessment study formulates a number of recommendations that are currently guiding the Commission's reflections about what would be the ways forward for the future. And there, I would like to distinguish perhaps two different categories of avenues for reflections. The first one, well, is very much linked to the design of our future European Urban Initiative, which I said will be discussed in more length in the last of our webinars next week. But these solutions have to do with the stronger relevance to the ERDF of calls and procedures, to the development of transfer mechanisms in close cooperation with the urban programs. And there, I must say that our colleagues are doing an excellent work on this front, as they are currently completing the assessment of applications that will see first pilot transfer networks implicating UIA cities to be launched in the weeks to come. It is also all about all the other extra services that the European Urban Initiative will be able to provide in terms of capacity building activities, fed by the experiences from our UIA projects and so on. But there is also another part of the answer on which I believe we should try to also stimulate reflections today, which are not totally in the hands of the Commission alone, I would say here, and depends very much from decisions to be taken at national, regional, or local levels as concerns, well, the management of programs, strategies for 2021-27 that are currently in the making. So here as well, of course, the Commission is willing to be as proactive as possible. Envisage a solution includes encouraging the text of programming documents to be tuned in a way that would be favorable to facilitate innovative actions getting some funding. Anytime, of course, this would be relevant to fulfill the objective of a certain targeted urban areas. Another of our suggestions would be to introduce an EUI seal of excellence or a mechanism that would be approaching this concept. For those that are not necessarily fully familiar with the concept, it would consist in attributing to our project proposals that were well rated in the calls that we are carrying out at the European level, but could not get funding just because of the scarcity of resources, to be able to get a sort of quality label that would help them, help the project promoter in their quest of alternative sources of funding, that is from the programs or any other source available at national level. We would, of course, in the end also try to publicize through our EUI any other incentives of the same nature that we would be made aware of that would favor the mainstreaming of innovation as best practices to be followed elsewhere. All in all, it will be about, activated these big wheels that you see here represented of this mainstreaming engine. And of course, I very much count on the reflections of our audience today to help us identify where would be the most important decisions to be taken to make it work as efficiently as possible.
Fantastic. Francois, thanks so much for joining us. I know you'll be with us next week, where you'll be saying a little bit more about this assessment study, which is a really rich source of all sorts of key pointers for us in terms of moving forward. Thanks for mentioning that we'll be sharing the link in today to the report, so people will have a chance to see it themselves. I also see that we've had a couple of other little comments, no questions. So stay with us, Francois. I know you'll be jumping in later on. As I say, you'll be with us next week. Really good to have you on board. Thanks again, and really good to hear those key messages. Thanks a lot. Cheers.
Thanks to you, and here again to listen our debates, and you will find in this slide our functional mailbox. So please take contact also to prolong the discussion beyond the webinar itself. Thanks again.
Thanks, Francois. Thank you. And I noticed in the chat that Ophelie has reminded us about the Twitter handle. So if you want to share on social media some of these key messages, if you want to let people know what's happening in these discussions this morning, make sure you use the hashtag UDN webinars. The other link is there in the post from Ophelie. So thanks for that, Ophelie. As I say, the chat bar is the place for questions. So we've got a couple of panel sessions running, just about to kick off shortly. If you have questions, post them there. We'll try and weave them in if we can. So we're going to shift our attention from the big picture conversation with Francois. Francois mentioned the 5 policy objectives. We ran 4 parallel sessions last week looking at 4 of those. We're going to shift our attention now to the 5th, which is this whole question of bringing Europe closer to people, and frame it within this conversation about the integrated approach. If you joined us for the first set of UDN webinars in November, you'll see we dived into this quite deeply. So a chance now to hear from UIA cities I'm going to switch off my microphone, switch off my camera, and invite Peter and his colleagues to switch theirs on. Peter, the floor is yours, and good to have you with us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eddie. Delighted to be here. So we're going to be looking this morning at the integrated approach. And for the purposes of this discussion, we've taken a quite simple definition. There are many others. So for our purposes, integrated approaches bring together different policy fields to address problems more effectively than through sectoral approaches. So more effectively than through sectoral approaches. I have a fantastic panel with 4 cities represented. I'm taking them in alphabetical order. From Budapest's District 14 of Zugló, we have Rebecca Szabo and Susanna. From Cluj, we have, where the project is the future of work, we have Anna Maria Vrabi. From Milan, where the project is Open Agri, we have Rosanna Torri. And from Toulouse, where the project is Commute, we have Jean-Claude Gaudi. A very quick summary on the project. Budapest is looking at co-housing within a context of social housing. And they're trying to combine social housing with environmental sustainability. Cluj, on the future of work, is looking at 3 aspects of the future economy. Work 4.0, culturepreneurs, entrepreneurship for cultural enterprises, and social inclusion with a focus on a particularly tough Roma neighborhood. Milan Open Agri focuses on an open innovation hub in a peri-urban agriculture setting. And Toulouse is focusing on reducing commuting in the sector of the city nearest the airport, which includes also Aerospatiale with something like 22,000 employees. So that's a quick introduction to the 4 cities and their speakers. I'm going to just start now with asking each of the speakers to present their image and talk about why they chose that particular image. And I think we're taking the first one we're taking is going to be Budapest, if that's okay. So here we have the image. Rebecca rather. Can you tell us why you chose this image?
Yes, hello, good morning, everyone. Nice to see you, and thanks for the possibility. So my name is Rebecca Szabo. I am from Budapest, and I am a deputy mayor of district of Budapest. This is called Zugló. This is the 14th district. And I chose this photo because this represents our goal, our dream of our project, which is a housing project, as you, Peter, already mentioned. And basically, this image represents a future regenerative, collaborative social housing community, which is co-created by the municipality, us, and its residents, and also which is co-created by several experts who are working on our project. This is focusing on social housing, and also we will try to show a good example how to create both socially and environmentally sustainable innovation in the frame of UIA.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. I'm now going to move to Cluj, where we have Anna Maria. And just to say, her correct title is that she is the director, the co-manager of Future of Work and the director of the Urban Innovation Unit, which is part of the Cluj Cultural Center. So Anna Maria, what does your image represent? And the image, please.
Hi, Peter. Yeah, thank you. Hello, all. I'm going to talk about this title in terms of the integrated approach a bit later. But until then, the image basically represents the fact that whenever we deal with jobs and skills and policy issues around that, the economy doesn't care about our regional boundaries. So this is why Cluj Future of Work actually focused and it's working on 3 layers, trying to connect not only how we imagine our work reality in 20 years, but how we can actively influence it. So there are 3 layers of intervention. Work 4.0, dealing more with automation, culturepreneurs or cultural entrepreneurship, and informal work, who gets excluded from the current labor market, and that is our focus on a specific neighborhood. For the rest is the functional urban area. I think that's it for now, and I'll talk later more.
Okay, I'm now going to move on to Rosanna, who's going to introduce the slide from Milan. And Rosanna is at the Polytechnic di Milano, but is also the project manager of this Open Agri project. Rosanna.
Yes, thanks, Peter. Yes, actually, I'm working in the municipality of Milan as a project manager of this project and also other European projects. But yes, my background is from the university for many years. And here in the image, you can see basically the main object of our project, which is working in an area that we can call a fringe area, which is in between the very dense urban tissue and a wide agricultural park in the south of the city. So you can see one former farmstead that we are going to refurbish thanks to the UIA funds, and a wide area, an agricultural area with some plot of lands owned by the municipality, which are at the core of our project, as I will explain next in the next question. But basically, we are working also at a wider level, because thinking about this kind of a hub for innovation in peri-urban agriculture, we are imagining also to attract flows, resource, people coming also from the regional level and not only from the city. So there is this kind of interaction between the very local area, because for sure UIA are area-based project, and then the wider level at the city and regional level. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And finally, last but not least, Jean-Claude Gaudi is the Vice President of the Toulouse Metropole. And if we can have the next slide, he's going to introduce that one. Jean-Claude, we had problems with your sound earlier, so I'm hoping that hasn't recurred. We seem to still have...
Can you hear me? Yes.
Yes, yes. Good, thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, yes, this wonderful picture, it's rather scary, huh? Shows that Toulouse has really a booming demography. We are in the top 3 in Europe in terms of demographic growth, with more than 20,000 more inhabitants every year, with more than 4 million daily displacements on the city area. Growing 500,000 displacements daily in the next 10 years. So we have 1,000 more cars every month in Toulouse. So it's challenging because Toulouse is attractive. We create a lot of jobs in Toulouse. We have an airport traffic that is growing 15% every year since decades, and so we have this challenge of congestion to manage. So we have different spots around Toulouse, and we decided to focus on the most challenging one, the one around the airport, on which we find the Airbus headquarters, the European largest industry plant. And we decided to hit this very spot with the capacity, because it's another challenge of the project, is to duplicate the ideas that we have developed on this urban area on other spots of the Toulouse area. So the duplication was also part of the experimentation we wanted to address. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Jean-Claude. We're now going to look at which policy areas these different projects try to combine in their Urban Innovative Action project. I'm going to take Milan first. So, Rosanna, could you tell us a little bit about how which policy areas you're combining?
Yeah, thanks, Peter. Yeah, Open Agri is a kind of an integrated project, as we start from the idea to work on peri-urban agriculture, but from the perspective of jobs and skills. And so basically the idea is that we will build a model for a hub that work with the new entrepreneurs, innovative ideas and projects in peri-urban agriculture, but at the same time, so we are combining a kind of rejuvenation process that is already live in the area, and we will refurbish not only a building of this compound of the former farms that we call Cascina Nosedo, but also we are contributing to make again more attractive and more kind of new pole in this area that it's for sure a fringe area, a peripheral area, which is characterized as usual by a lot of problems, but also by a lot of resources in terms of social networks that are working there. And so basically we are also in the frame of some strategic policies that Milan is working on, like the food policies, and for sure our project is well connected with the idea to make more sustainable our food systems, working on new concept of peri-urban agriculture, but also to the idea, as I said, to regenerate, to develop a peripheral area. And again, it's also well embedded in the frame of circular economy policy of Milan, because at the end of the project, of the UIA project, we are building a new scenario, a legacy of the Open Agri project that is well connected with the circular economy. Because we will work in a close connection with the wastewater plant that is very close to the farm set, and so a new focus that we want to add to this idea to support new entrepreneurship and innovative entrepreneurs is also well connected to the idea of make more circular, make the most of food, and also connect the peri-urban agriculture with the cycle of water. So different strategic policies that are well connected to the project, but I want to just to anticipate an aspect that sometimes these very integrated and strategic policies does not overlap with the organizational units within the administration. And so sometimes the challenging aspect in the implementation is also to work with this kind of integration in our mind, and then try to work with different part of the administration and units that are asked to cooperate to build an integrated vision. But this is a challenging aspect.
And in fact, one of your more recent policies is that the circular economy strategy for the city now encompasses several other policies, but doesn't itself have a department. Is that correct?
Yeah, because this is cross-cutting policies, and so many departments are involved. It's a kind of very high strategies, and we are trying to do all the sectors, let's say, circular, so working on a transversal issue.
Okay, thank you very much. Anna Maria, in Cluj, you also are, through these three main elements of your project, you're also trying to combine different aspects. Can you tell us a little bit about how that integration operates?
Sure. In Cluj Future of Work, we took a stance on how to actually be proactive around policy challenges rather than reactive. So in order to understand what incentives would actually work. So this is why we connected things that in all policy papers, European, national, and regional ones, were points of reflection and challenges. And we said, if we could actually have this chance of an experimentation period, how we would do it. So this is why, one, we connected all the things that we were seeing in trends in terms of competitiveness of our local economy that was not necessarily harvesting the potential of culture and creative industries. So this is why one of our specific focus is the Culturepreneurs program, so culture entrepreneurship, and how can that better support culture and creative industries to have an impact, a more significant impact in the local economy. The second trend that we were seeing at all levels, from European to local ones, was the fact that the jobs and competencies are going to go through a significant change. The pandemic has definitely accelerated that, but we were looking definitely at some of the risk of automation and how some competencies are going to change. So this is why we took a very proactive role in taking this message of peace, that it's not that jobs are going to disappear, but they're going to transform, and we need to tackle this. So this is why our work 4.0 looks at how this upskilling can go and how both companies and the public sector can work together for that. And the third stance is who gets left behind. So this is why we also tackle the policy challenge related to social inclusion. So what is our current formal labor market? Who is it excluding, and what needs to change? So this is the track of informal work. Because of all of these three policy areas that Cluj Future of Work is tackling, we also embedded a lot of transfer mechanisms in order to capture the learning. So we actually have a fourth strand, we call it reimagining work, which captures a lot of our transfer and sort of replicability and scalability mechanisms. So we use actually forecasting methods. We also use a lot of open innovation methods in order to see how we can replicate some of the things that come up from these three scenarios of work that we are currently doing. And also our project, because it sometimes gets a bit too complex, we try to break it down and explain the sense that UIA is giving us this wonderful opportunity for 3 years. So a bit to shape it, like we have 1 year more for research, consultation, stakeholder engagement, to actually be able to properly identify how the experiment should look like. Then the second year, this is the year that we are in mostly. It's a lot of experimentation, a lot of trainings, a lot of pilot projects. And the third year, which we're going to go beginning of in the middle of this year, it's going to be about transfer. And when we say transfer, we don't mean it necessarily only in terms of what gets to go where, but also in terms of what were some elements of trust that we were able to put together through this 3-year-long project.
Okay, thank you. I very much like this sequential approach that you have, where you start with the research and the analysis, you move into experimentation, and then you talk about transfer, which also can mean about mainstreaming, which links to the presentation we had beforehand about the structural funds. Okay, I'm going to move on to Jean-Claude Dardelet in Toulouse. Jean-Claude, which were your 3 or 4 main policy areas that you're trying to integrate in your commute project? We seem to have lost Jean-Claude again, but he will come back, I'm sure. Maybe I'll move on to look at Budapest. So Rebecca, can you fill in for yourself now, just to cover which are the main areas that you're integrating through, and I think it's 2 in particular that you're trying to combine through your co-housing project.
Yes, thank you. So just to make it clear, we intend to build a house which will be owned by the municipality and with approximately 20 apartments in it. And you have to know that unfortunately there is a housing crisis now in Hungary. So it's a very, very important goal to include the housing policy and social inclusion, because there are many people who just cannot afford on the market to find proper housing. So this was one field, one policy area. The other policy area, we can say that it's environmental sustainability, and also we can say climate change adaptation, because it's very important for us that these buildings will be environmentally sustainable. Energy efficiency will be a very important point, and also smart technologies. And we will also kind of teaching to the future tenants that how to live with a low energy use, and how to live in a way that they can save money, and also it can be useful for the environment as we use less resources. So it's a kind of non-profit, low-cost and affordable housing. And also we would like to meet very strict environmental standards. And also we would like to create a space and community together with the tenants. So that's why I also mentioned not only housing policies, but also social inclusion, because we would like to create a real community. So that's why it's a co-housing project.
Okay, thanks very much. Now, I'm not sure that we have Jean-Claude back yet.
I think he's here. I mean, I can see him.
I can see him, but can we hear him? Jean-Claude, did you manage? You can hear me, I know that, but can we hear you? No, I think we still have a problem there. Okay, I'm going to just fill in for him there, because their project is about reducing commuting. It obviously covers mobility and transport to a large degree, and many different aspects. So from everything from park and ride to encouraging car sharing, and they have a very, very successful car sharing scheme operating across public and private sectors that have employment centers. They even have decentralized workspaces as a new idea. So that by seeding different projects across the city, they're able to bring down their overall target. And one interesting aspect of their project is that they have a particularly strong data link. So they have almost real-time information on both environmental and transport monitoring data, partly because it's so close to the airport, which has high levels of pollution control. Okay, I think we can't hear Jean-Claude for the moment. And what I'm going to ask him to do is, when he can speak again, can he just interrupt us? And we'll turn over to him. I now want to move, because you can't integrate policy without bringing together stakeholders, and all of these projects have very rich partner bases, which has enabled them to bring together their stakeholders often in new and original ways. So I'm going to start with Cluj. Can you, Anna Maria, can you just tell us a little bit about how you bring together your stakeholders? And not too long, because we only have 22 minutes left. Okay.
Sure. Very briefly, one of the mechanisms, and this explains a bit my funny and long title, is the co-management structure. So we have the steering committee where our 10 partners are represented, and this is has become an essential instrument, not only for project implementation, but a real way of actually managing to put the integrated approach into practice. But we also have a co-management, meaning that Cluj-Napoca municipality and the public-private partnership called Cluj Cultural Center, which has as member Cluj-Napoca municipality and another 98 members from Cluj, share the responsibility of overview over the project. And this has been really essential in actually managing for two work cultures to be able to do a lot of cross-fertilization. So one of the instruments is the steering committee. The second one, the co-management practice, which in itself it's an innovative element that we were very keen on. And the third one is the festivals. We actually have each year embedded in the project a sort of deep dive like conference where we present the progress of each year of what happened, and then at the end of the project in the third year it's a festival. It's a 10 days festival all city round that not only has the role for showcasing but a role for reflection. and sharing. The festival is going to actually take place in October 1st to 10th. So if you had you had plans to visit Transylvania in the hope that we can actually travel, please save the date. That does not mean that our project actually ends in October. We have a different timeline now because of the pandemic, but the festival is going to be in October. So co-management, steering committee, and festival and deep dives in the years of implementation.
Okay, thanks very much. The festival and this idea of celebration will come through perhaps again. How about Milan? How have you worked to bring together your stakeholders? And one interesting aspect of your project is that you have 18 sub-projects which were brought through an open call. So perhaps talk a little bit about how you bring them together as well as the main steering committee type stakeholders.
Yeah, thank you. Very briefly. Yeah, we are 16 partners, so a very complex partnership and very diverse partnership because we have private enterprises, university research centers, different institution, public institution. And so that was a challenging aspect of the project. And as an open innovation project, the integrated knowledge was at the core of our project. So as you were said, we have worked a lot on this program for that was a public call looking for innovative project to be experimented on the ground on the 30 hectares agricultural land that I mentioned before. And so we have select 18 projects coming from different type of proponents, from enterprises already formed to citizens simply interested to do something with us in this kind of lab. And so the interesting thing is that as a partnership, we have worked together to co-design, to build a kind of mentoring or accelerating program to provide to these participants to the call. And that was very interesting because it was the opportunity to integrate the different forms of knowledge that are in the partnership. So different professional background and types of knowledge, from the more technical to the scientific to the more related to the context, so context specific, coming from NGOs, for example, that we have also in the partnership. And that was a kind of experiment, but very interesting because we have at the end build a very integrated program of mentoring that it's going to be quite successful. And that was one of the way in which we are start to integrate the different competencies and background of the partnership.
Thank you very much, Rosanna. I've just seen a question from Regina Trenkler-Fraser, who's cutting across a very similar field, which she's asking how the various projects have brought together various policymakers in departments of their local authorities in a practical manner. So how does this actually work? And of course, if we talk about Toulouse, and I'm assuming we can still not hear from Jean-Claude, although that may have been some feedback from somewhere. Toulouse ran a weekly meeting of its stakeholders, and among the partners, it's probably the project that has had the most frequent levels of stakeholder meetings that I've come across. So a weekly meeting every I think it was Tuesday morning at about 10 o'clock, but every week, always the same time. And another feature of the Toulouse project, which I was impressed by, is that they use celebration as a way of also keeping morale up, feeling that it's a shared endeavor, and having these are evening celebrations, not morning, so that they're in France, so they can have wine and so on. And this idea of really cementing the partnership in different ways, so that you have a hard work in the morning and celebration in the evening. Obviously, the celebrations are not every week, but I think this also links to the festival idea we had coming from Anna Maria. Budapest, from Rebecca. Do you want to say anything about how you've brought together your stakeholders? Because you have a mixture of quite technical contributors on some of the specialist themes of your building work, and the more citizen and social partners. Rebecca.
Yeah, thank you. So I would say, yeah, it was quite interesting to combine the social part and the street planning and expertise part. So we have quite a balanced project partnership with 9 partners. We have technical know-how, small enterprises, also one with special knowledge on smart technologies and energetical issues. We have NGOs, some of them dealing with environmental questions and some others with social issues and housing. And also we included the university because the research and after transfer knowledge is a very important part of the project. And of course, the inclusion and involving the stakeholders, it was also about local citizens as we're gonna build a house for them. So we tried to make a representative group of people who would represent our future tenants, because we will have tenants in the future, but they are not selected yet. And we discussed with them the architectural design, the co-design, and their cohabitation preferences. And for example, it was an interesting moment that when we together decided that just to have more space, we won't have washing machines in each apartment, but we're going to have a common laundry in the house. And just to inform you, in Hungary, it's not common at all. So in Hungary, usually everyone has their own washing machine in their own bathroom. But here we could change the view and to make a more environmental sustainable building, we changed it into a common laundry. So it was just one example. There are a lot of others which are interesting regarding this process of working together with the different stakeholders.
Okay, thank you very much, Rebecca. I see a question about measurement and reference to the UN sustainable the SDGs from the United Nations. So when we come on to looking at measurement, just think about that one. But before we get there, I want to ask you a little bit about, can you show what concrete examples you have of how working in an integrated way is bringing benefits to the project and therefore to the city? So trying to make integration a concrete idea. And perhaps Rebecca, since you're on now, could you carry on and say how particularly this, for you, the combination of environmental sustainability and social inclusion is bringing concrete benefits?
Well, my belief is that if you want to tackle the climate crisis and the environmental crisis we are facing in the 21st century, the only way is to combine the social and environmental aspects. So we have to find solutions which are environmentally feasible, but which are also beneficial for the people, and for the people who cannot afford many times, to meet the environmental standards. So I think this will be the benefit of our project. But of course, we are only at halfway of the project, so the building is not built yet. I hope it will be built soon. So I think at the end, this will be the main goal, that we can show it to the other policymakers that this is the way to go, and this is a very important message for me.
And in practical terms, for your tenants, this will actually result in, for example, lower heating bills.
Oh yes, exactly. So their heating bills and the maintenance cost of the building will be lower, and also for the let's say poorer people, they will have to pay less, because it's quite common that in social housing, these old buildings are in a very bad shape, very bad quality, and unfortunately the bills can be really high, and we would like to turn this on the other side. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, Anna Maria, do you want to say something about, particularly about the perhaps the entrepreneurs part of your project, how that demonstrates integration in action?
Sure. I'm going to talk indeed about culturepreneurs because it's the most advanced and we already are seeing results. But basically, this this idea that one of our participants actually said it's like a one-stop shop for everything that a cultural entrepreneur needs, in the sense that the business essential modules, that the training modules, were actually developed by cultural organizations, entrepreneurs, and universities. They afterwards, the specialized modules on, for example, we have a focus on visual effects and post-production training for films, as well as custom design and so on, were developed by key industry partners. So the biggest film festival, some of the biggest clusters on this. The infrastructure in order to make this work was actually bought by the municipality, but in strong collaboration with the industry partners who worked on actually identifying how these innovative labs should, what function should they serve and what kind of technology should they have. That now culturepreneurs in the specialized modules are actually working on. And moreover,
so just to be clear as well, the Culturepreneurs is a type of incubation project, in the sense that you will be supporting something in the range of 70 cultural enterprises over the program.
Indeed, yes. So Culturepreneurs, it's an incubation. It's an incubation and educational program for enterprises that have now completed half of the courses, the business essential courses, and are now moving in the practical part on specialized courses and using the labs. And for this, not only the 70 this cohort, experimental cohort of 70 people is important, but also the work behind on this capital investment that has been done at city level, for which all the partners, the 10 partners of the consortium were involved, and which is going to also significantly positively influence in the future how Cluj will be able to support culture and creative industries. So this has been quite telling, but apart from this very coherent things that everybody sort of wants to put a pin, okay, 70 people, key labs. I think one also important thing was to understand a bit the user experience on whoever gets into this type of training, and also interaction with the public sector, with academia, with the entrepreneurs and civil society. So we're also looking at the learning curve that is right now happening. So this is going to be one of the key things that we're going to measure in the project. More in the sense of how you actually measure progress, not necessarily just to have 7 businesses, but more how have they actually been supported, and how can this support be transferred at a larger scale in the future. But for us, it has been a real opportunity to be able to work in an integrated way like this.
Okay, thank you very much. And the third of this particular round, Rosanna, for Milan, how has this worked for you in? So what concrete examples can you have? I was thinking perhaps of your wastewater project.
Yeah, as another concrete example that I would like to give, it's related to one of the main outputs of our project, which is what we call a master plan. It's a tool that we have drafted to redesign this area in terms of landscape design and planning. But it's interesting because it's very integrated to the jobs and skill perspective, because we have tried to redesign this area accordingly to the 18 project that we have selected with the call that I mentioned before, that was looking from innovative ideas in peri-urban agriculture. And we have selected proposal from the agri-food tech to the agroecology perspective to social innovation. So a kind of mix of projects and ideas that we have tried also to connect each other's. And starting from this geography of ideas and project, we have started a process of design and redesign of the 30 hectares plot of land in order to demonstrate that we can have productive and new entrepreneurship project, at the same time give back this area also to the city, because this area is conceived as a workable area. We can imagine to use it also for the free time of the citizens. So a kind of a multifunctional area, which is the same idea that we have on agriculture, on peri-urban agriculture, which it's not relating only to production, food production, but also can give different kind of services and ecosystemic services. And so this is a tool to try to integrate this different perspective, and as a legacy, we will have also this kind of guidelines for the administration, because it is also, let's say, a model to land use that the administration could in the future replicate in other areas, so try to test with our projects. Okay,
thank you very much, Rosanna. We only have 5 minutes left, and we need to move into the closing stages. As we do, I want to use the Toulouse example just quickly to illustrate how perhaps the measurement of integrated approaches can be achieved. I mentioned earlier that they have the advantage that it's by the airport, and because it's an airport, it has to have very high levels of pollution monitoring and also of noise monitoring. And so they've been able to, and not to mention, it's fairly straightforward to measure or to observe commuter flows during any particular day. So Toulouse has used the real-time data that they have to directly feed back to partners how the combination of their different actions. So to give an example, the park and ride scheme, the ride sharing that employees can use, and also the staggering different starts of different factories, so that not everything starts at 8 o'clock or 8:30. These three things can contribute quite heavily to bringing down the peak. And they also can, particularly in the case of ride sharing and park and ride, they can reduce pollution quite across the whole day. So using the combination of real-time data, and this obviously links to the UN SDGs and to the wider strategy of the city, they're able to achieve this type of effect. So they've got a concrete example of how integrated approaches are actually leading to their goal. Does anyone else want to comment about measurement and how you are using measurement to achieve your or to give feedback to your stakeholders? Perhaps it's early days particularly in Milan, in Budapest, because you haven't yet built the structures. From Rosanna or Anna Maria, any other comments about using data and showing how you're contributing towards indicators?
Yeah, from my point of view, again, measuring it's not an easy task. So as you can understand, the monitoring of the result and the outcomes of the project is a challenge per se. So what we are trying to do in terms of how to capture, how to measure is the added value of an integrated project. For example, we're trying to, for instance, to capture the improvement in the capacity of the civil servant, but also the politicians that are involved in the project to design and to manage it, such as complex project, also in other kind of policies and projects, because what we have tried to do with Open Agri was, as I said, the kind of involvement, engagement of different parts of administration that was not involved from the beginning of the project, and this was not so easy to do, because sometimes departments are very busy with their ordinary and administrative staff, and so working on a very integrated and complex project funded by you, it's not banal. And what we are trying to measure is exactly this kind of maybe increase capacity or willingness to to participate and to manage a project that ask for a coordinated and wide vision. And that's one thing that we are trying to measure. Another thing that we
No, I'm
measure...
going to stop you there because I'm running out of time.
Okay, sorry.
And I want to try and get a quick closing statement, but it can only be one sentence. So you have been warned. And I have a sentence already from Jean-Claude, who's managed to communicate it by text. He says, commute indicates how we can do things better when we work together. And I thought that was a really nice combination of the stakeholders and the integration. Who else? Rebecca, do you have a final lesson really for other projects from your project?
Well, thank you. I think the final lesson can be that European and national policymakers have to understand, and we have to tackle social and environmental problems together. And I hope we're going to give a good example for that.
Okay, so that's almost an example of vertical integration. Rosanna, do you want to come with a quick lesson for other cities?
All right. Yes. My main lesson learned is that yes, we have to try to overcome this kind of friction between integrated project and policies and administration that experiment a high fragmentation of competencies. So when we deal with very integrated project, we have to interface with that. Is more used in the administration, that it's more used to work on silos.
All right, thank you. Anna Maria, one very quick one, but just one sentence because I'm now out of time.
A quick one would be to not be afraid of intangible processes and results that can definitely complement the tangible part that we are very used to see in city development orientation. That would be from
All right, so don't be afraid of the intangible, even though I think you've also said that that's the hardest part for the city administration to adapt to.
Definitely.
One last comment came through the chat, which is that if anyone wants to see an example of how the Sustainable Development Goals can be integrated at local level, Bristol has a good experience of this, despite no longer being in the EU. So I'd like to thank my 3.5 contributors and apologize to everyone for our technical issues. But thank you, Anna Maria, Rosanna, Rebecca, and not to mention Jean-Claude, who managed to communicate despite being unable to speak. Thank you very much, everybody. And I'm going to hand back to Eddie. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Peter. Thanks very much. And thanks to our panelists. Really hard to compress those rich, complex discussions in that sort of setting online in that time scale. So you've done a brilliant job, all of you. So thank you again. Jean-Claude, apologies about the technical hiccups. We rehearsed this 3 times, but as you all know, on the day, things can happen which we can do little about. So again, I just echo Peter's apologies. On the the SDG issue, I see that Adele from URBAC just posted a bit more information about the URBAC network. Name checking Bristol and also Mannheim, a range of cities who are looking to localize the SDG principles are about working with them on a pilot project about ways in which we can better connect some of those experiences. So keep an eye on that. Lots of things in the chat, but we'll keep moving onwards. Anna Maria finished there by talking about this whole thing about tangibles and intangibles. This difficulty of sometimes we measure what we can, but some of these things are less difficult more difficult to capture, to quantify. I'm going to invite MJ, Marie-Jose Zondag and Joanna Schmetek, both from Icarus, to pop your cameras on and to join us to share some headlines from some work you've been doing for UIA about this key question of monitoring and evaluation. And I think you're going to finish this short input by telling us a little bit about an event you've got coming up where you'll be able to share a bit more about this really, really interesting work. MJ and Joanna, nice to see you. The floor is yours.
Hello. Hello. Thank you so much, Eddie. So good morning, everyone. So after this interesting panel, we will show you how evaluation can make projects even stronger and show better the impact of projects. As Adi already said, my name is Marie-José Zondag, and I'm here with my colleague Joanna Smetek. We are both from ICORUS, which is a research-based consultancy that works throughout Europe and also beyond. We are very honored to be able to present here the capitalization results of evaluation approaches for urban innovative projects, which we started last year for the Urban Innovative Action Secretariat and are now finalizing. And as Eddie said, on the 11th of March, we will be having the final event where also the online evaluation platform for urban innovative actions will be launched. But we are giving you here with the first insights in the results. So the aim of the capitalization exercise was to identify good practices of monitoring and evaluation in urban innovative projects that urban practitioners can really learn from. We started with a literature review on evaluating innovation, which resulted in a paper. And we have identified basically that evaluating innovation means firstly, that due to the dynamics of innovative projects, there are limitations really to what you can, what can be known and understood about impact of innovative projects. So it's really important to have a learning culture and be flexible. Secondly, participatory approaches are really of big importance when evaluating urban initiatives. And thirdly, a system thinking is needed as a basis for conceptualizing evaluation. So after the literature review, we made from the 55 urban innovative actions a long list of 20 interventions, from which finally we selected shortlisted 11, which you can see here on the slide. For each project, hearings were held with urban practitioners and evaluators, and this resulted in 9 detailed case studies and 38 lessons, which will also be on the online platform. We identified basically 3 dominant evaluation approaches among the projects. First, the theory-based approach, which has a clear output result impact logic. This was used, for example, by Utrecht and Antwerp. The counterfactual approach that uses a control group to see if the approach is working, which was used in Barcelona and Rotterdam. And thirdly, the participatory approach, where evaluation is continuously feeding the projects. This was done in Athens and Brussels. But before we start with the lessons, Joanna, can you maybe tell something about the challenges that they encounter when evaluating urban innovative actions?
Yes, sure, Marie-José. And you can see 5 issues here. I'll try to tackle them, but in 3 points, because we have a little time for that. So the first challenge definitely is that in innovative projects, you're testing new solutions. So the causal links between actions and your intended impact are not always so clear, and actions may lead you to the desired change, but they may also lead somewhere else and maybe somewhere also worthy. And the projects are very dynamic living organisms, and they evolve. So what evaluation can do in this context is to provide timely feedback on whether the project is on the right track, whether change is necessary, and whether the change already implemented is showing any promise. And the second thing, and I think this has been already mentioned in discussions, is that innovative projects integrate various sectors, various actions. Sometimes innovation lies in that integration, and they also integrate multiple partners. So with that, maybe the vision or there are different interpretations, there can be at least, of what the project is trying to achieve. And it doesn't have to do with the lack of vision, but with complexity that then kind of creates ambiguity. And what evaluators can do, especially if they come early on, is to sort of help tackle that ambiguity, clarify the visions, the ideas, and integrate viewpoints, integrate sectors, and work as this kind of evaluation can be this integrative platform throughout the whole project. And finally, the third point would be that, well, these projects usually tackle big challenges, complex, persistent problems, and that change doesn't happen overnight. It takes time to take effect. And then there's also stakeholders, decision makers, who have little time, and then evaluation also has little time to sort of provide information. And in this context, what evaluators can do is to maximize learning and to really try to capture the change that is occurring, and also so shifting the focus from accountability to learning, and then also to maybe manage expectations of stakeholders and decision makers as to what impact can be achieved in the short time span, and possibly then save some of those promising innovative projects from being, dismissed too early.
Okay, that's interesting. So what can we really learn from monitoring and evaluation? How can evaluation support innovation?
Mm-hmm. We've learned a couple of. I've already kind of started. Yeah. We've already kind of started talking about that, but in the slide here you can see that we've learned a couple of lessons, 38 lessons that are in the report, but many more that maybe didn't go there. We divided them into four subject areas. I'll just be able to tackle really quickly a couple of them, but I think the overarching lesson is that the evaluation is not a nuisance. It can be a very, very useful instrument, and especially very integrative. And as we were saying, there's a lot of complexity in this project, a lot of partners, a lot of people, and that's how evaluation can respond, can bring these points of view, these sectors together to really have an integrated approach. It can also help and support replication, upscaling, and follow-up. But for all that to happen, what we've learned is that it really needs to be integrated into the projects. And at the practical level, it means, for example, bringing evaluators on board really early so that they can participate in the projects. It also means that evaluation should really be a participatory event. So bringing partners into the evaluation is important, but also bringing other stakeholders. So especially beneficiaries through the approach that one chooses, and through also through the research design. And then to maximize that participation, evaluation has to also take into account stakeholder vulnerabilities to create this kind of inclusive environment in which one can work. And finally, not finally, but it's also very important to choose the right approach. And Marie-José already you mentioned a couple of approaches, but I think for innovation, that's the lesson, that it should be a flexible approach and a sensitive enough to do a couple of things. To capture the why and how the interventions work, so the kind of processual dimension, but in addition to whether they do, so the effectiveness or impact, to capture intended and unintended impacts or results, and also be really open to change that happens, because these projects happen in very dynamic circumstances. So I guess participatory, very open, hands-on approaches and theory-based approaches are probably better than the counterfactual. But then again, we shouldn't be orthodox, and there are so many that we can combine to create, and that's another lesson, final and probably the most important, a very learning environment, this kind of learning culture to embed in the projects and evaluations, feedback loops and learning loops that evaluators can tell people, tell projects what is happening, and change can take effect, and so that the innovation can flourish. Have I covered everything? I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, you did fine. So on the next slide, you can see the date of 11th of March, and also the link where you can register, which will be sent to you after this workshop, where we will, from 10 to 12, explain more on the examples, the case studies, the lessons, and also the theory-based approach, participatory approach, and counterfactual approach. So save it in your agenda, and thanks for listening.
Thanks a lot, MJ. Thanks, Joanna. That was brilliant. I made a really good chat last week, and I feel kind of guilty at squashing you into this slot here, but it's really good to see you've got this event coming up. some questions in the chat, so you might want to pick up on those questions after you come offline just now, because we won't have time to dive into them for the moment. But just to remind you, if you are interested, and I know lots of you will be in hearing more about this very thoughtful piece of work that MJ and Joanna have been doing, then you can see the details on the screen just now, and you can register from the link that's there. Ophelia's also shared a link with some of the other UIA materials. We talked about the knowledge, the sort of knowledge hub work when we were online last week, mobility and housing. So again, that's the space to check out for some of the content we've been sharing with you this morning. Okay, I think we should take a break now for 5 minutes. We've been online for about 90 minutes. If you're old school, go and have a cigarette and a double espresso outside. If you're new age, do downward dog and get yourself a herbal tea, get some fresh air. Let's take a break for 5 minutes. We'll see you back here at 11:30. Okay, thanks a lot to all of our speakers. See you all shortly. Thanks, bye. So welcome back, everyone. We had a very compressed front end. We've also got lots to cover in the second half, so I'm going to be very brief here. I'll remind you, we're shifting our focus a little bit. We're going to be looking really at this whole issue of mainstreaming, how we scale up and make these better connections between the UIA work on the ground and the bigger cohesion policy picture. Shortly, we'll be introducing you to our next panel session, our moderator and panelists. Before that, though, I'm going to invite Amelie to come back and to share some poll questions with you, which will help us set up this first discussion, also give us a sense of what's in your heads in relation to the key questions we're going to be addressing shortly. Amelie, do you want to come back in?
Yes, thank you, Eddie. So this is a second poll ahead of a very interesting panel discussion with managing authorities on how to mainstream UIA practices and policy learning. So let's launch the poll now. We'd like to hear about your opinion on that matter. Let us know how you think that we can improve the mainstreaming of UIA policy and practices lessons. So you have a bit more time for this poll. So take a bit of time for reflection and put your answer them. It's a more difficult question than the first one, I would say. Do you think that we can improve the mainstreaming by improving multi-level governance structures, by creating stronger links between managing authorities and UIA projects, or we can improve it by promoting the work and results of UIA projects more proactively at the regional and national level? Do you think that we should explore opportunities to cascade the lessons from UIA projects throughout the territory? Or exploring solutions to facilitate the access to mainstreaming funding for scaling up UIA projects or replicating them? So please put your answer. We still have a few seconds left for this poll. And you can put 2 answers maximum. Vasily, can we have an idea of how many people have answered yet to the poll?
Right now, I'm going to share the poll result.
Okay, great, thanks. Okay, so let's have a look now. So it seems that answer E, about exploring solution to facilitate access to mainstreaming funding for the scaling up or replication of UIA projects, had the biggest response for this poll, with 17% of answers. It's good because here managing authorities seems to be the most concerned, and we'd like to hear from the speakers at the next panel to know what they think about this. So I hand over to Marek for reactions to this poll.
Yes, good morning, and Thank you very much. Indeed, an interesting result. I mean, I'm trying to go through that. I see that indeed the promotion and then sharing the results and spreading the results is perhaps the favorite, together with looking at some facilitation and solutions to actually encourage this uptake. And I think that for that, I think we have a very good panel for today to reflect on the possibilities, on experiences, and see how actually the learnings can be translated to the kind of mainstream or upscaled realities in when delivering on sustainable urban development. I'm very glad to be here today with you, and I have a pleasure to have a very interesting panel to moderate for this session. I will very briefly introduce the colleagues in the panel, and obviously I will also give them the floor to a little bit explain the context in which they are operating, where are they coming from, what is their a core part of work, before we will dive into the discussion, which will be dedicated to the mainstreaming of urban innovative action practices and the learnings we could record so far. Today I'm here with the representatives of different levels of the cohesion policy delivery system. And I have the pleasure to welcome with us Zdenka Simonovic from the city of Ljubljana, Ima Medina from the Valencia region from the managing authority, Ruud van Raak from the West Netherlands Managing Authority, and Giorgio Martini from the National Agency for Territorial Cohesion from Italy. Shall we start first with the perhaps your reflections on the poll and the short explanations of your working environment, where you are coming from, what you are dealing with before we get there. Zdenka, would you like to start?
Yes, thank you very much. Hello, everybody. So just a brief introduction. As you already said, I come from the city of Ljubljana. And the city of Ljubljana, to explain you the context, is implementing or just finished the implementation of an UIA co-funded project. It's a PLOS focused on how we can use the alien invasive plant species, not just to keep our biodiversity, but also to prevent the damage that it makes to the agriculture. My city, Ljubljana, is also involved in a urban transfer network project. It is the bee partnet, which is focusing on how we can introduce and keep the bees within our urban jungle. At the same time, Ljubljana is implementing also projects under Article 7 of ERDF, which has been mentioned several times today. And those are the projects which are based on a sustainable urban development strategy and are implemented as integrated territorial investments. So we already work in this environment, and in this context, I'm also working at the intermediate body of the Association of Slovene Municipalities, which is the intermediate body for Article 7 for the selections of those projects. And then I come briefly to comment the poll results. I must say that I was in a way a little bit not so sure to which answer give my priority. I gave it to improve multi-level governance and stronger link between MA and the managing authority and the UIA initiative, and that is because we are still struggling actually to get the urban dimension mainstream mainstreaming in the cohesion policy in our country. But of course, equally, I think it's also very important to explore solutions for the upscalers to give to those projects which are implemented successfully, that have proven the concept of innovative and innovation on a limited scale, to give it really to the possibility to upscale that can really bring real results, important results.
Zenka, thank you very much for sharing and explaining indeed the background where you're coming from, so that it's clear for our audience. Let me continue, perhaps, and I follow the lead of the slide. When I started with Zenka, now I have Giorgio in the lineup. So Giorgio, please, a brief introduction on your side. I see you are there with the colleagues. Please, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Mark. I am the managing authority of the 2014-2020 National Operative Program in Italy, dedicated to the Italian metropolitan city, within the Agency for the Territorial Cohesion. This last is the central government agency responsible for the implementation, the coordination, and the monitoring of all the co-funded program in Italy, programs in Italy. The program involves the 14 biggest municipalities in Italy, which are the intermediate bodies delegated to select the operations following the Article 7 of the European regulation. The program started with a total fund about 1 billion, and around 40 million euro are for the city of the more development city, and 18 million about the city of the South Italy. The resources are assigned since the beginning to the city, and are the cities that must be aware of their own budget, so to better plan their own resources. In the future programming period, we expect to cover also the medium size with a consistent increased budget also for the previous 14 biggest urban areas. Part from the thematic priority axis dedicated to the policy object of the cohesion policy, the program has a horizontal measure named Technical Secretariat, which has two overall macro objectives, one national and one European. The national measures are designed to increase the capacity building of local public administration, creating thematic exchanges between the cities in order to define a common standard, guidelines, methods and tools to better implement the project. The European strand is to better connect Italian cities with possible other instruments. About the pool, I would say that within our program, we can explore possibilities to create stronger links about managing authority staff and the UIA project, so to have a fruitful knowledge exchange that would benefit the urban authorities.
Yeah.
Okay.
Giorgio, thank you very much for these explanations. Let us proceed with the other two members of the panel. I have next one Ima Medina, who will give a brief introduction of her background. Ima, you hear us? I don't.
Thank you, Marek. Good morning to everybody. I'm Inmaculada Medina, as you said. I'm the Vice Director of European Funds in the region of Valencia, and I'm in charge of the ERDF and the ESF program in this region of Valencia in Spain. Regarding the poll, well, I will say that in my region, some progress has been made in mainstreaming the UIA actions, but there is still a way to go. And I agree with the two responses about how could we improve this UIA projects mainstreaming. I think all the things are good, but maybe I will choose to make stronger links between the managing authority staff and the UIA project, and also to facilitate, to share and explore for solutions to facilitate the UIA mainstreaming.
Thank you, Ima. And let's close this round with Ruud on his take on the poll, and obviously given the background of his program or the structure he's working with.
Yes, good morning from cold and snowy Netherlands. I'm head of the managing authority of the ERDF program of the West Netherlands since about a year of 12. And we have in our program also 4 ITIs for sustainable urban development in the 4 big cities, Utrecht, The Hague, Amsterdam and Rotterdam. And I'm also the program manager for the integrated urban development strategy for the city of Rotterdam. So that's about my work. Then a first reaction to the poll. I put the promoting of the AYA project as one of the elements, and also the exchange between the AYA project managers and the managing authorities. That didn't get the highest rates. That was for the last one in the poll to promote to improve access. And I'm very curious about creative ways to do that. For example, maybe a seal of excellence will be a good thing. I don't think it will be a good thing to obligate that certain amounts of ERDF programs should be filled up obligatory with AYA projects. That's always very difficult. So I hope that we can find out some more creative solutions to improve the access, because I think that really is a good thing. Thank you.
Good. Thank you for your take. And indeed, we will try to have a look a bit closer at the experiences you have at your respective levels and in your programs, in your daily work on bringing the added value of urban innovation or urban innovative projects into the programs you are responsible for, or into the actions you are responsible for. I mean, we heard also the take for the future when François was presenting the learnings from the UIA, and this was one of the dimensions we were particularly interested. So perhaps I would start right away where we left it, Ruud, and I would start with you. On explaining perhaps your valuable experience with the UIA projects and bringing it into the program.
Okay, I will give some reflection on that question. We have the advantage that the people who manage the AYA projects are in the same department. That's already a good case. We had in a few ways some added values from the AYA project for the ERDF mainstream programs. So for example, a few projects which didn't make it in the calls, but were very good runners-up and had good rates in the AYA selection, were taken on board in our ERDF programs. So for example, a really large project is the project House of Skills in Amsterdam. It was in the first AYA call, not selected, but was a good runner-up in the first who fell off. And it's we were very pleased that we could take that project on board, which is quite a large project and fits very well within in our ERDF program in the mismatch on the labor market. So we have really an advantage that we have in our ERDF program a study part in the ITIs for mismatch on the labor market, and that theme already fits quite well to the first call of AYA. So that was very easily to take that on board. A second way of added value, I think, is AYA projects which has to have a follow-up. I think because of the good practices, there's also possibilities, and we see now in our REACT, which is REACT EU, the second part of our programs, that a few AYA projects are already trying to make a follow-up in our mainstream programs. For example, our own project Bridge 1.0 was in the first AYA call. It was already mentioned a few times, and Bridge 2.0 will be applicated next week in our REACT ERDF call. So there's also some added value that we can bring it in our mismatch on the labor market priority in the mainstream program. And third but not least, I think when there are some comparisons between the themes, then it's of course more easily to fit in and to adjust the project. So I think there's a lot of added value, and also to inspire, of course, other projects in our mainstream program for the good examples, to take some elements, not always the whole project, but some elements of some modules on board when designing a project on the same subject. So I think that for the first reflection from my side.
Yeah, thank you, Ruud, for sharing. I mean, this is, I would say, a kind of a model situation where we were, or you were capitalizing also on the UIA projects, which on one hand were successful, but on the other hand, those who were prepared but not necessarily received the funding to bring them into the program, and not necessarily in its entirety, but you modulated this approach. I think that this is extremely useful in terms of the experience as an approach to see, because it confirms that there are possibilities to align with the mainstream funding opportunities. Let me turn now to perhaps to Ima to ask questions on their experience on bringing innovation projects to the program. I mean, I know that the region of Valencia did not have any innovative projects. Nevertheless, you have some experience with this approach. Ima, please.
Thank you. Well, I think it is, in our case, for the region of Valencia, it's a little bit early to talk about massive inspiration from the UIA actions from our program, but certainly it is a motivation for the regional authority to think about and to take into account all the local priorities within the UIA framework. As you said, well, we had in the first call, we had 5 projects. In the first UIA call, we had 5 projects from Valencian municipalities that were presented, and none of them was granted. Again, in the second call, we had 6 projects presented from the region of Valencia, and none of them was granted. Fortunately, in the third call, we had 1 project out of 6 from the region of Valencia that was selected and granted with 4.3 million euro. It is a project from a municipality called Ribarroja del Turia, and the project is called Guardian, and it is focused on preventing and mitigating the fire with recycling water. But in the fourth and in the fifth call, again, we didn't have any projects from the region of Valencia granted within the UIA call. So this made us to reflect about this situation, because we were aware that some of the projects and the proposals from our region were really good, and they could have had good qualifications and high scores by the UIA Secretariat, but due to the scarcity of funds, or more due to the limitation of UIA funds, couldn't be granted within the UIA calls. So we thought about launching a regional call, but focused on these municipalities that had already presented projects in the UIA calls and weren't selected due to this limitation of funds. The main achievement I will say is that we managed to obtain the assessment and evaluation from the UIA Secretariat. That was a crucial and fundamental point for us, because we could rely on these qualifications, as the UIA Secretariat has an overview of all the proposals and those that are truly innovative. And we were a little bit worried. I mean, what I want to say is that maybe what is considered innovative for me, for my region, may not be considered innovative for other regions of the European Union. And this was really a critical point, and I think this is the added value of these actions, their innovative aspects. So this was an achievement, and another achievement I could say that we started to explore solutions to how to introduce these actions in our mainstream programs. Specifically, we thought in the ERDF program, and this is also part of the learning curve. Even if finally we didn't program them, for me it is a step that is already taken, and it will be easier for the 21-27 period to introduce this action. We found also some obstacles and barriers. For example, the lack of funding, also the lack of capacity for some implementing bodies. We can also talk about lack of time for implementing the actions, as we had to launch a regional call, and it takes at least 1 year between the beginning of the preparation of the call till the decision of granting the aid is taken. In the region of Valencia, it's taking more or less 1 year, and afterwards the projects must be carried out, and some of them may need public consultation or environmental authorizations or long-term for hiring the works. So we were worried about if it was possible to comply with our certification plan. We thought it was maybe a little bit risky. And also a barrier for us was the matching of the UIA actions with the specific objectives of our regional ERDF program. Before you commented the survey where it was said that 75% of the managing authority thought that there was this link or this fit or matching within these topics and our specific objectives. In our case, for some UIA topics, we couldn't fit them at all in our specific objectives. For example, urban poverty, urban security, or integration of migrants and refugees. For some others, we had the priority, the axis 6, protection of the environment, but we didn't have a specific objective for climate change or for circular economy. So, and also we think the Commission is not willing to open new specific objectives if there is not a critical mass. In our case, the projects presented by the region of Valencia had low expenses. So there wasn't that high amount of expenditure to certify. So in the end, we decided not to introduce them in the program. But in conclusion, what I would like to highlight is that, of course, these actions are an added value for us because they have this innovative aspect that is always an added value, and they are a source of inspiration for the next 21-27 program.
Nima, thank you very much for sharing this experience with us. And I take that you went through quite some learning in the current programming period, and you are going to take on board these lessons when preparing now the new generation of regional programs. I take that you are in a full swing of preparation for the future, and you will be able to address some of these, let's say, shortcomings you identified or obstacles you identified in there. But we will get to that a little bit later on when we will be discussing a little bit forward-looking and future-oriented reflections on the mainstreaming and upscaling. Let me now turn to Giorgio to share his perspective from being responsible for the national program or the national interventions within the agency. Italy and Italian cities are one of the most, or are the most active cities in urban innovative actions, with more than 300 projects submitted in the course of the calls. Giorgio, what is your take? How do you tap on this potential and well, what it looks like a rather innovative ecosystem of cities who are also very active in seeking help and promoting solutions?
Okay, thank you. But we believe that funding innovation in urban areas is very important and must be inspiring, but we have never been connected to the UIA project with our program. Also because this program, this programming period has very sectoral teams, and so we hope that in the next programming period, where we can enlarge the teams, the topics, I think that would be easier to connect our teams, our picture about with the projects UIA. Several years ago, we were asked to try to recycle those Italian UIA projects that were considered good, but not good enough to be funded by the UIA. But we meet several difficulties along the process. In particular, thematic field of UIA projects were not always in line or eligible under the urban priority axis of cohesion policy, or the integrated territorial investment of the operational programs. Besides, they were not always following all the specific objectives and implementing procedures of the rules of the cohesion policy. It would be necessary for us perhaps to better follow the evaluation and selection process. I think that the success of deployment practices in UIA depend from several different factors. For example, national or local legislation, social environment, territorial characteristics, also the administrative capacity of the single cities, and the level of innovation. Replication of a successful project without considering this element, this teams, those single factors might bring to far different results from those expected. In order to deploy okay, and we believe it is important having a European initiative where cities can test their own most innovative ideas. Having said that, we hope that a better connection among different instruments in the future programming period would allow for a constructive win-win situation. Thank you.
Yeah. Giorgio, thank you very much for sharing your perspective. I heard quite a number of obstacles which were related, especially in well, what may look like incompatibility between different procedures, or being used in the mainstream cohesion policy and the UIA, which is perhaps more flexible and simpler. And then also alignment on the level of the strategic alignment in terms of themes and topics to be addressed. I would be, and we will have this opportunity to look at, how we will translate this also in the future. But let me close this round with Zdenka's take on experience with the UIA project from the perspective of the city, who acts in the capacity of the intermediate body within the cohesion policy system, and share with us experiences from their perspective. Zdenka.
Yeah, thank you. So maybe our experience with the ITI and UIA projects are in a way different, especially when we consider how easy it was to keep the project integrated. As far as the Urban Innovative Actions project is concerned, well, we've been able really to work in a very integrated, be it from the part of topic and partners and stakeholders view, and didn't have any obstacles actually. While for the Article 7 project, we encountered the situation which I believe Rosanna from Milan before named as integrated projects, but fragmented administration. And I refer especially to the administration above the local at the national level, where to get and to keep the project integrated, we had to apply to different ministries. So that was not really an easy way of working. And therefore, maybe also while looking at future, also within our managing authority, maybe it would be very useful to look at a unique intermediate body for integrated urban projects, because in that way, I believe that our cities would be much more successful and could do more with less effort, administrative effort actually. So this is one experience of ours. that is that we really need integrated administrations for integrated projects, if I can reuse Rosanna's word. And as far as the topics are concerned, with which we deal within our urban innovative projects, we are rather confident that we will be able to apply, I don't know whether successfully or not, or to further develop those topics and upscale them, also from the cohesion policy funding, ERDF especially in the country, because we can see that on one side, the topic of circular economy is rather high, especially in the policy objective 2. And we hope that we will have also the possibility to link them to urban development projects, which are implemented in the form of ITIs, because it is foreseen that the ITI projects in the next perspective, 21-27, will be implemented in policy objectives 1 to 5. So it will be for us much easier to connect, be it the topics and be it the integration of different solutions that we have in a way tested in the urban innovative actions, also to use them in the Article 9, it will be the Article 9 now, of the ARDF co-funded projects. I don't know whether I was clear enough, but if I sum up, we are seeing that there should be possibility to co-fund upscaling of our urban innovative action projects through the cohesion policy, but to do it and to continue to do it in an integrated way, we need also an integrated administration.
Zdenka, thank you. A very interesting take on also on the framework in which the projects are taking place and being managed. And I do hear the plea for better working together, and it resonates also as a part of the results with polls where there was a part of the audience who were in favor of improving multi-level governance of sustainable development investments. We had the opportunity to little bit open up the topic on the future, and I wanted to in the second round I wanted to ask more about the future. On one hand, having all these experiences and the learnings you had in the past, either with the UIA project, which received the funding with the Sustainable Urban Development Window under the Cohesion Policy, or unsuccessful projects on the other hand. What would you see as as an important thing to do to facilitate actually the uptake of innovative solutions in the implementation of cohesion policy programs? Be it directly from the UIA or innovative projects as such. Giving cities opportunities to innovate and to actually ask for the support and demonstrate that there are solutions which can be found, and then further on financed in this context in the cohesion policy. So I would then invite you to react on or reflect upon that. I mean, what can be done on the level of the managing authority or on the level of the institution you are working on, and on the other hand, what would be useful to have addressed at the EU level, and there I'm hinting a little bit at the future European urban initiatives, which will take part of the innovative actions together with other streams which will be included under the initiative. So let us start. Perhaps we start now with Ima on her reflection on the future. You did mention already that you have your learnings, you're preparing the program, you will take that into account. What would you see as a key to secure on the level of the program and perhaps on the EU level? I mean, what would be good to have to facilitate and to make it easier for this uptake?
Thank you, Marek. Indeed, I think we can do more things in order to get a better deployment of the UIA actions in the mainstreaming programs. For example, for me, it will be interesting to have more assistance from the UIA Secretariat and from experts in urban matters as well. More involvement from the managing authority, in our case, is the Central Ministry of Finance of Spain, because the region of Valencia is intermediary body, and also more involvement from other intermediary bodies from Spain as other regions of Spain in order to share our opinions, our results, and to transfer the knowledge in this area. I think it is important to have a look also in other European Union competitive programs as URBACT or Interreg as well, to see what kind of projects are being granted and related to urban matters and with these innovative aspects. I think it's also very important from our side to start a capitalization process, bringing together all the stakeholders, for example, the municipalities, experts, maybe universities, the civil society, and to share the results of the projects, what we expect from these actions, and if the expenditure is eligible to transfer all this knowledge. And I think from our part, from the intermediary body, we can share our expertise managing ERDF funds. We have already in our regional program some interventions with the municipalities involved, and we can already share what have been the main achievements and also the main obstacles. And finally, well, I'll say that we are making the best to introduce in the next 21-27 program that it's just starting to be prepared now, these urban innovative actions in the ERDF program, but we may need certainly the support of the European Commission. By one side, to making sure that the UIA topics are aligned with the specific objectives of the ERDF programs, and also with this seal of excellence. I think, in my opinion, it's critical because it's something we can rely on, and that can guarantee this innovative aspect that for us is truly important, and it's what gives an added value to these actions and to mainstream these actions in our program. So I think this is all from my side.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. Really encouraging to see the decision to bring in the innovative window in the project. I mean, obviously there are many things which will need to be looked at, and I take that you mentioned strongly the capitalization, knowledge dissemination, which plays an important part and could be an important role to play for the European level. Let me turn now to Giorgio to reflect on the future. I mean, you did mention potential mismatch or perhaps two defined topics within the ERDF programs to accommodate the projects. What would be your take on the future? What we should do better, or where we can do better on the level of the managing authority and at the EU level to allow these connections and uptake of innovative solutions?
Okay. we believe that there are three levels of action to be promoted. The first one is at the UIA level. It's important that UIA calls would follow the policy objective relevant for the cities, thematic fields of the partnership agreement, the national partnership agreement, and the cohesion policy. The second one is at the urban agenda for European Union level. It would be important for the UIA to maintain a link with topics of the urban agenda partnership and to give a positive competitive advantage to those pilot projects conceived within the European Union Urban Agenda's partnership in order to offer the opportunity to implement those pilot action drafted under the urban agenda for the European Union. The third level is at the managing authority level, at my level, through the development of a national technical secretariat, a network of national big and medium-sized cities in Italy who can promote a collaboration, dissemination, and knowledge exchanges through several different tools, from operational tailored workshops to more strategic thematic tables. And I am sure that we would be able to find better ways of collaboration in the future from different level, different instruments. And I am agree with Immaculada that I propose that UIA Secretariat and expert group works more closely together with the management authority of the national but also regional level.
Giorgio, thank you for this structured take, and indeed you talk it through the different levels of governance which would have to be involved, and where there is a scope for action. I think that now with the shared principles of the Leipzig Charter, of the cohesion policy principles, the innovative actions, the design and the future design of the EUI, I think we will be able to bring all these elements together in the view of really supporting effectively the cities and as well as the management authorities in preparing and encouraging the uptake of the innovative solutions in the future. Zdenka, could you share your take with us? I mean, you did mention the better integration of administrations around the integrated projects. What would you see there for yourself? Which way you would encourage, particularly this element from the perspective of the city of Ljubljana?
Okay. I would see a big improvement for the possibility of implementing integrated projects if we had within the country one intermediate body for urban development projects. That is considered in relation to Article 7 or Article 9 projects that are implemented by cities. So that would, in my opinion, would be a possible solutions to this administration fragmentation, which I mentioned before. Furthermore, while speaking about possible improvement at the level of managing authority, in our case, that is the state level, it would also be possible if maybe a part of European cohesion policy funding would be in a way dedicated or earmarked for the upscaling of the successful innovative urban projects. I don't know whether that is acceptable, is possible, but at least to have a consideration of that and see what can be done in that respect would be very useful for us. At the European level, I would say for cities, at least in Slovenia, it is very helpful that the urban dimension remains in the mainstream of the cohesion policy. And of course, it is important there are no limitations posed to the possibility for cities to use also the technical assistance funding, which is given to the country, because very often cities, of course, we deal with our regular business, but or business as usual, but for those very innovative, very important projects where we, in a way, are becoming front runners in connecting different stakeholders and subjects, and we become living labs. Of course, we also need people who are able to work on that. And in that respect, maybe there is also a point that could be improved at the local level. Namely, we see that very often cities are reluctant, city leaderships are reluctant to employ new people to implement those projects, and those who already work on other issues are overwhelmed and overcrowded with the work and are less successful than they could be in implementing those projects. So maybe those are the improvements at the two levels.
Thank you very much. I'll get perhaps, if Eddie will allow me at the very end, because we are already out of time. I would then perhaps had a word on the cohesion policy and a few points you did mention. But let me ask Ruud and on his perspective for the future, because from the explanations and experiences you shared with us, it looks like that the future is already there, and you are actually integrating innovative and upscaling innovative projects in your program. So what is your take? What is there left for you as to go one step further in improving actually the uptake and the mainstreaming of the innovative solutions from the cities?
Yes, I think maybe there's more than one step. It's not ideal already in our situation. So I much agree with Imna and Zdenka. So I won't repeat their suggestions, because we can also take them on board. That can, in our case, surely be a better promoting of the IA projects in the cities, and a better exchange even between the RDF program authorities and the IA project managers, although it's quite a short distance in our case when I compare it to the other speakers. To add a few remarks on the questions you asked, I think on the level of the European Commission, it might be useful to be aware that knowledge spreading is a main element of the IA projects, and that in the selection criteria and in the budgets which are approved, that it's be assured that knowledge spreading is a main part of it and can't be missing. So there's and to add to that I think it's also important, and I heard it also from our IA project managers on our side, that matching events are very important when they are organized at the level of the European Commission, to exchange views and to match cities which have the same problems. I think that most projects which I have seen have elements which a lot of cities will be of use, not in the whole, but I think that's the main part that you shouldn't forget to make it. And maybe as last thing on the side of the Commission, that in evaluation parts of the projects, an obligated element should be that there is some exploration how the project will continue, how the knowledge spreading or the follow-up of the project will continue after finishing, so that will be an element of every evaluation of every project. And on our side, yeah, I already told that that there also could be more exchange and more promoting the IA projects. But I think it's important to have an element in the program that they can fit in easily. So that's why we now, for the future programming, for example, promote the instruments of, for example, city labs. And we write in our program for the next period that we want in our Article 7 projects a city lab kind of instruments. And when you have such an opening, then it's more easy to take innovative urban actions on board. So that's not very difficult to do, but it's an important thing that you have a position that you can take them easily on board. Then not on all a perfect match between the RDF programs and the IA teams in the different calls, but in most cases you can take them on board when you have the right instruments and the right words in the programming, so they can do it. So we put city labs on board now, and also transition teams, which have also a good match with the urban innovative action, so that we can easily take them up. So that's more or less. Otherwise, I'm going to repeat.
Thanks,
previous speaker.
Thank you very much. Thanks to Marek as well. Thanks to all of our panelists. We could spend a day on these topics, and also our audience. There's been a really lively exchange. I have some questions to bring in, but we're kind of slightly out of time. So what we'll try and do is we'll try and feed some of these questions, which are about integration with ESF and ERDF, around how we address some of these funding gaps. Some of them are quite technical and practical. We're trying to pick up some of these in our third final session, where we're looking forward and trying to make this connection between today's discussion and what's down the road for UIA. We'll also be bringing in Francois again with some thoughts from the study, which again is very useful and relevant. In the meantime, thanks so much to all of our panelists. We're not quite finished yet. I'm going to ask Amelie just to come back in and maybe give us a couple of headlines, Amelie, from today's session, and then I'll just remind people where we're headed next in our webinar session 3.
Yes, sure. Thank you, Eddie, and everybody for this very good webinar. I actually really enjoyed the possibility we had to hear about the assessment study of UIA recently published this Monday, and that showed the full potential for mainstreaming. Just picking up the fact that 75% of managing authorities consider UIA topics fully consistent or fairly consistent with program priorities, it really demonstrates the great potential for policy mainstreaming. The talk with UIA cities was very relevant as well. It's actually crucial to exchange on very, very practical answers and lessons coming from the project, especially on how they implement integrated approach. It gives inspiration for next programming period and PO5, and I would retain one lesson shared about the need for horizontal integration, yes, but also for vertical one. Talking about inspiration and lessons from UIA projects, I would like to invite all participants interested in building their capacity related to monitoring and evaluation to register to the UIA event that will be held on 11th of March. A lot to learn during that event. And from the last panel discussion, we got very interesting input, of course, from managing authorities. Many thanks. I would keep in mind the recognition of UIA added value, but also the suggestion for better integration with non-ERDF programs, supporting innovative, integrated, sustainable urban development actions in cities. but also for bringing UIA permanent secretariats to closer to managing authorities and national administration. Beyond their inputs, I would like to underline those shared by the participants in the chat, especially during this panel discussion, that were very relevant. We'll keep the chat IDs, questions, and we will reflect on them. Thank you very much all for your reaction.
Thanks a lot, Amelie.
To you.
Super, thank you. And just to remind you, so next week we have our third and final session. Again, running between 10 and 12:30. If you're not ready, you're probably registered already. If you're not, then you know where to go. All of our content is recorded. You can see the link there. All the presentations, all the material, including the chat, is captured and will be shared. Next week, we're focusing on carrying on some of the discussion around scaling and reaching other parts of the kind of wider audience, the wider territorial question. We're also looking at this core question about conditions for innovation, which we haven't really touched upon yet. And we'll also be exploring further this whole question about reach and impact, again, which we've touched on today. More to say about that next week, but we've said enough for one day. We've done enough talking for this morning. Thanks so much for everyone. Great to see you all. Thanks to our panelists, really high quality contributions from across Europe. We really appreciate your inputs and your time. Stay safe, stay well, and we look forward to connecting with you next week. Okay, thanks very much, everybody. Bye-bye.